Hello and welcome to a Lividian Publications unboxing, more accurately a Brian James Freeman Patreon unboxing. This, my friends, is Lost or Found. I believe it's Lost or Found, not Lost and Found. Lost or Found in translation by Bev Vincent, the new guest chapbook. So, if this is your first time, or you're not as familiar with Brian James Freeman's Patreon, I would highly recommend subscribing to it if possible, because it is incredible. I mean, you get advance notices on all of the newest Lividian titles, you get advance notices on any sales, grab bags, etc., what have you, but at the various tiers, you also get extra goodies. The lowest tier, which is $5 a month, is the Brian James Freeman chapbook tier, where twice a year you get one of Brian James Freeman's chapbooks, which is a short story. Next tier up is $10 a month. That is the guest chapbook tier, where you still get those two Brian James Freeman chapbooks every year, but you also get guest chapbooks like this. So this is Lost or Found in translation. This is the second chapbook that Bev Vincent has done for Lividian. The first was a few years back, 2 years back, 3 years back, a couple years back. It was What's in a Name, and it dealt with, if you're not familiar with Bev Vincent, the man is a walking encyclopedia on all things Stephen King. The man knows his stuff. What's in a Name, I do not have a copy of that one. I joined his Patreon too late for that. But it included alternative titles that Stephen King's novels and short stories almost had. So this one, Lost or Found in translation, deals with other, translated titles, so Stephen King's titles and what they translate to in other languages. Just like What's in a Name, this comes with, I don't know if the other ones were actual postcards or if they were just, little art cards, but these ones are postcards, which is pretty cool. These are postcards featuring Francois Vaillancourt's artwork, featuring what would have been, what could have been the artwork for these translated titles, such as Ias Pedras Chovram de Chao. I could have butchered the hell out of that. I'm guessing it's Carrie, based on the floating rocks. Brennan Mub Salem, so Salem's Lot. Speaking of which, trailer just dropped for that. It is incredible. You should check that out. The fact that that's not going in the theaters is just a damn tragedy. Surma Hotel, so that's got to be The Shining. I don't know what this is. Possibly Rage. Firestarter. I'm not even going to try that. Dude in a wheelchair. Something in a wheelchair. Misery? I don't know. Unico Indizio Le Lune Piena. Lune is moon, which kind of gives me not Gerald's Game. What's the other one? Not Gerald's Game. Gerald's Game was the you're chained to a bed. There's some moon in that too, but the one with Dolores Claiborne is the one I'm thinking of. This has got to be thinner. This, The Shining again? I don't know. I mean, how many Stephen King novels could there be where there's an author featured? I don't know. That's got to be Under the Dome, and that possibly Revival. So interesting. So let's actually look at the chapbook itself. I apologize. 4 minutes in, we haven't even looked at the main event. But look at that cover design. That is nice. Featuring presumably the various titles. There's Billy Summers. That translated well. So, anyways, this is signed by both Bev Vincent and Francois Vaillancourt. One thing I do want to point out with this one, this is the first chapbook of its kind, is that it is not numbered. It just says, hey, this is limited to 500 copies. Brian James Freeman just posted about this change over on his Patreon. Essentially, the numbers were getting out of hand. Okay, so we're actually kind of going book by book, and it looks like he's kind of diving in and saying, oh, let's talk about Carrie. Yep, there's Carrie. Let's talk about Salem's Lot. and so on. Okay, so he's actually kind of diving in and giving to each of the novels themselves. It looks like, oh, it is Rage with the bullet. It looks like not every title gets its artwork, but hey, you got to give Francois a break sometimes. So anyways, Brian James Freeman was mentioning that the chapters, oh, Cycle of the Werewolf, that's the one. That makes sense. And the one kid's in the wheelchair there. But the numbering was getting out of hand with the chapbooks. So these various tiers, these various different offerings that Brian James Freeman has done through his Patreon, all started at different times. So, you know, like he didn't initially offer tiers with guest chapbooks. Guest chapbooks are relatively recent. They only just started back with, I think the first one was You Are Released. Or I guess technically the first one may have been one of the Richard Chismar ones. I think they did The Sniper, for example. That might have been the first guest chapbook. He's kind of going quick. He's kind of blasting through, you know, these titles and these latter pages. You don't get the full page descriptions like you do with the first ones here. Interesting. But anyways, the numbering was getting out of hand. People were coming out of the Patreon and leaving the Patreon, and so they had a number, then they lost a number, then somebody would join and they'd get another number. And one of the examples he gave was somebody who could possibly have 5 different numbers. So he said the numbering was getting out of hand. It was taking hours upon hours, like ripping your hair out day after day, trying to get the numbers situated. So he decided that going forward, the chapbooks are going to be unnumbered, which I am personally fine with. I mean, I'm here for just the incredible quality of the production and the stories within. Usually you get some nice fiction stories. In this particular case, you get a little bit of nonfiction, a little bit of biographic information on the international versions of Stephen King novels, and I am all for it. It's going to be a very interesting read. I'm looking forward to diving in. Plus, it's a very nice, high-quality chapbook anyways. I mean, this is it's kind of glossier paper, but it's not like some cheap paper. This is nice paper. You get a nice quality, you know, no corners are being cut here. Oh, even On Writing gets an honorable mention. How about that? The German title, Life in Writing. That makes sense. The Spanish title is intriguing, As I Write. Autobiography of a Craftsman. Memories of Bread Making. Interesting. Or Korean, Seductive Writing. Okay. So anyways, these chapbooks aren't available to purchase typically. I know sometimes if there are leftover chapbooks or, you know, maybe dinged copies, Brian James Freeman, BJF, might list them on Lividian's site so that you can pick up a copy or pick up an extra copy, or if you're just joining, you know, after the fact, you can pick up a copy for yourself. But you know where you get a advance notice of when those copies go on sale? It's his Patreon. So I would seriously recommend joining his Patreon if you haven't already. I mean, let me tell you, there are lots of Patreons out there. Lots of small presses have their Patreons. Lots of authors, artists, musicians, and so on have a Patreon. And I've supported several over the years. And several of them are really good. I mean, it's just not necessarily a matter of getting something in return. Most of the time, you're just being a patron. You want to support the artist. But Brian James Freeman likes the idea of people getting something in return, whether that be chapbooks, whether that be advance notice, and he absolutely delivers. Like, you will not regret becoming a patron of his. I know a lot of the upper tiers are sold out. They're no longer available on the Patreon, but I believe the $5 tier and maybe the $10 tier are still available. So, I mean, if you want a copy of this for yourself, seriously consider subscribing to his Patreon if you are not already subscribed. It is incredible. I've done plenty of unboxings on the channel here, showing off Lividian Publication titles, including chapbooks, even some of the grab bags I've purchased from Lividian, and they are amongst the best grab bags I've ever received. I cannot sing his praises enough. But anyways, if you do want to just live vicariously through me, that is fine as well. Subscribe to the channel, because I will continue to support Brian, and you can support me supporting him, I suppose. I will continue to do these unboxings as I get the titles in. So anyways, thank you very much for watching. Check out Lividian Publications. Please consider supporting Brian James Freeman's Patreon. There's a link in the description below if you wanted to check that out. And we'll see you around next time.